just wish that you hadn't forgotten. I hate this disease, I hate human beings. We fall apart before we get broken. I just can't believe you're not here with me. We should be out back sitting underneath that willow tree. You could talk and I'd be listening. I didn't take the time to read your mind before you forgot me. But you'll never leave me, no, my heart is bleeding, and I know this feeling's not fleeting. Your hugs were the best thing, just wrapped up in your strength. I'd give up to be there right now. I just want you back, we all want that. I just wish that you hadn't forgotten. I hate this disease, I hate human beings. We fall apart before we get broken. Lock myself in my room to listen to voices recorded. Don't walk outside to avoid being avoided. This feeling that comes with not having a purpose. If I find something soon, maybe I won't feel so worthless. I've always felt this rhythm, but I thought it'd be pointless. Playing music that's for rich folks, not a prophet of poignance. Pointless is a feeling that comes over me often. Though I keep going for a fear of not affording my own coffin. I know I sound sad, but I've got to be honest. It's soothing to me and it helps with my progress. Writing these songs helps me change, then I have to. Not even for me, but everyone that I matter to. I've got this feeling life won't always be like this. My dad said to me, it's your calling, your purpose. Walking through this life like a man with no shadow. Always by myself, just trying to find my way. I've got no idea of how to get this thing started. Looking for a way out never got me by. I'm so scared and I don't know what to do. All this medicine does is hide the truth. How could you be happy if you've got nothing to prove? So get up and get out there, son, what you got to lose. Walking through this life, forgetting strife in the rear view. Don't prolong the pain, I owe myself more than that. If I learned my lesson, could I go back to high school? Tell myself to have some fun, don't be so pent up. I'm so scared and I don't know what to do. All this medicine does is hide the truth. How could you be happy if you've got nothing to prove? So get up and get out there, son, what you got to lose? Lock the door and run hot water. My sights are skewed, forgive me, Father. Sent you a text over dramatic. Got the response I wish I hadn't. I feel ashamed beneath my sleeves. Too much has changed, I have to leave. I love my family, I love my friends. And as for you, some good things end. I've made mistakes, I wish I hadn't. Things don't just change, we make them happen. I proved a point, forgave my father. Became less bitter, cause love is softer. I think I'm going off the deep end. I think I took a left when I should've took a right at the bend. I think I'm looking at the wrong trends. All these different people around me and they're calling me friend.
Happy 4th of July and welcome to SchuBros Unfiltered. This is a special episode coming to you live on the 4th of July. We're going to see if we can get some fireworks popping today. I've got over on that other side the Mr. Incredible, the Mr. One and Only, the Mr. Rooster Tail currently. Kyle, you always make fun of me for my hair, but sir, you just rolled out of bed or cowlick?
No,
What's going
I just
on?
didn't realize I had it,
Okay.
because in Skype, my video is like this big, so I really can't see myself. And to be honest with you, I'm not vain and I don't really care.
So our guest is running just a few minutes late, guys. He is coming. We're having some technical difficulties.
We pray.
He is talking to me actively, so we shouldn't have an issue. But
Okay.
Kyle, 4th of July. So let's start it off. Did you watch Trump's speech last night at Mount Rushmore? Did you see any of that?
I did not. I heard about the protests leading up to the fourth, to like him getting there, the indigenous people protesting and not removing themselves from the roadway, and then ending up getting arrested because they wouldn't remove themselves. And then I also saw that Don Jr.'s girlfriend, fiance, I don't know what she is, to him, but his significant other got announced that she has COVID.
It'll be
had it.
Kimberly Guilfoyle.
Yeah, so she has it, and she had it in Tulsa, but doesn't. But Don Jr. doesn't have it. I don't know how all that stuff works, but
Well,
yeah,
I've kind of been on a kick where I want to get the antibody testing because I think I've probably had it and just didn't know I had it at some point. So
yeah. My wife and I are kind of thinking. Well, she's due to the fact that she's pregnant. She, everything is amplified as far as like what she does get, but she's been not running a fever, but she's definitely having sinus allergy issues, and she's wondering if maybe it's also COVID.
Yeah.
Because the Saharan dust thing, whenever that came through, is about this time both of us kind of got kind of went under the weather a little bit when that came through, and we're not sure if it was that or if it might somehow we ended up getting COVID. But neither of us are deadly sick. We're both still neither one of us has ran a temperature the whole time. So we're not feeling the best in the world, but we're not like on our deathbed either. So, but then again, we're both under 40. So
yeah, and the numbers have clearly shown that. So for all of you out there, we wish you a happy 4th of July. Hopefully you got a fireworks show still allowed to happen in your local neighborhood. Midland, Odessa, no fireworks out here, guys. I mean, you can personally do fireworks, but there's not going to be any city shows or any church-wide shows or stuff like that. Usually there's 2 big shows here in Midland that kind of compete with each other. Usually there's a church that does a show on on the east side of town, and then the city we have the Midland Rockhounds, which is the minor league affiliate, the AA affiliate of the Oakland Athletics. So they typically do one over on that side of town, over by their stadium, which is kind of nice because it's got a great big parking lot. You park in the parking lot. You can sit in the car, and you can see everything. They usually have some kind of, musical going to it, so it's all good. So we are currently, finally, being joined. Give me just a second. I will get him ported in here. And he's another person who did not do a live ID. So let me see. Take the guess. I got it on the first try. Actually, welcome everybody, Mr. Jeff Charles. Thank you for joining us on 4th of July. How's your day treating you, sir?
It's going great. Just doing some writing and probably do some stuff later on. But yeah, it's going well. What's good? What's good with you guys?
Just wait. I want to make sure you said you're doing some writing because it almost sounded like you said you were doing some rioting.
I'm doing both, actually. I'm going to write a little bit, and then I'm going to go riot by myself in Austin.
Okay.
So Jeff, you are you produce content for RedState.com, for Liberty Nation. What else do you do? I mean, you live in Austin. That makes you weird just right off the bat.
Well, and I'm originally from California, so that doesn't make it any better either. Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, I like to create content. I've been trying to get more to doing videos and stuff like that. But other than that, I mean, just kind of hang out, read. I mean, work is pretty much my life. So that's pretty much what I'm doing now. I spend time with my kids, that kind of thing. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. So, the first thing I want to touch you about, because I've seen you on Twitter, I follow you on Twitter, and we've gone back and forth a little bit on Twitter. Not usually anything animosity towards each other. Usually we're fairly decent towards each other. There's some things, everybody disagrees at times. But one of the phrases, I don't know if you've coined this phrase but Sesame Street conservative. Which I love, by the way. I find it hilarious, and I've even sent you memes of Sesame Street. Take me down the street, down to get to Sesame. So where did that come from?
I accidentally coined that phrase. I never meant for it to be anything, but really, it's really Sesame Street politics, because it's not just conservatives that can be Sesame Street. We see a lot of that on the left, and basically, Sesame Street is similar to like the NPC meme, if you're familiar with that. Mm-hmm. But it's basically I use it with people who have more of like a childlike approach to politics. So basically, they don't do a whole lot of digging. They don't do a lot of critical thinking. They just kind of go with what they're being told, and they don't really question it. So that's what I mean when I say Sesame Street politics, because people are just approaching it as almost like a kid's program. Like you're just being taught stuff, and then you absorb that, and then you just go with it. But you're not really going any deeper. You're not really going with any sense of nuance or really a desire to look at the truth of a situation rather than following the narrative.
Exactly.
Like a lot of our people that are out there reading the headline and not actually reading the article.
Yes. Yeah, and actually that's a good point because I mean they've done studies and 80% of people that see a headline don't even click through. That makes it so easy for the media to manipulate them on both sides. I mean, on the right and on the left. You write a headline that is deceptive but kind of true, you know that the person's not going to click through and read the article because in the article you may actually explain the full story.
Yep.
But if you know that nobody's going to read it and they're just going to go with that headline, you can get them to believe what you want them to believe.
Well, and you know, I think you're right. So you obviously took some English classes and some rhetorical writing courses where in rhetorical writing you're supposed to take both sides of the aisle. You're supposed to explain,
Yes.
Okay, so I give you this side of it, I give you that side of it, and then down in the end of it, maybe I take my position. But I've explained both sides of it to you at least in enough information that you can then say, well, maybe I don't agree. Maybe I see some ball. And what we see so much from like the New York Times, the Washington Post, and don't get me wrong, conservative media does it as well. Breitbart does it, Daily Wire does it, that they don't put any conflicting information until about 3/4 or 70, or 80, 90% of the way down in the story when people have already fomented their position on it now. Now, I've had 2 pages of this being indoctrinated to me, and then all of a sudden I get this little blip about, oh, well, but okay, there's actually this extra little bit that is a little bit different. And it's like, wait, that probably was important. That probably was significant. Like, we kept seeing Trump's putting all the, illegal alien immigrant children in jail. And then at the very bottom, this policy was founded in 1996. Wait, that's important. I think we should have known that to begin with, that this is not Trump's policy. He didn't create this, because everybody on the left jumped on it of, oh, Trump created this. But no, that's not the reality of the situation.
Yeah, so and that's deliberate because another study found that of the people who actually click through to the article, very few actually read the whole thing.
Yeah.
So they'll read the first few paragraphs, but they're not reading all the way to the end. So if you stick it at the end, you can cover yourself and say, oh, but I put the information in there. It was in there. Yeah. Well, but you knew that people weren't going to read it. So you know what you're doing. So I usually
it's kind of like these YouTube videos too. Like, people will watch the first 10, 20, maybe even 30 minutes of an interview, and then we'll get into some juicy content at the very tail end of it, but most of the times people have kind of checked out. So that's why Ross is hopefully recording this episode.
Let me click that button. I am.
And then right capable of putting out clips after the fact, because if we're not putting out clips, people are only going to watch that first couple minutes and they're not really going to care about the entire conversation. So that's something that we've started doing to kind of emulate more of the bigger names out there, because otherwise you're not going to get the full message to the people.
Yeah, it's good that you do that. I mean, because that shows a desire for honesty and a desire for people to actually get the substance of what you guys are doing, whether they agree or not. So that's good that you're doing that.
So, well, and that spurred, me and you had talked. We've actually been talking about doing an interview for a while now. It was something that you and I have said, okay, we want to do it. And then I told you, well, shit, my computer took a crap on me.
Yeah.
So I got the new computer, and the new computer has so much computing power that I can actually stream and record simultaneously. So before it was, okay, if you're streaming, I barely had enough computing power just to do that. Now I have enough that not only can I bring in 3 video feeds via Skype and then port them back out, but now I also have enough computing power to record all of that at the same time. But there's a big topic that just got released a couple days ago, and you said you want to talk about it. I want to talk about it. I'm sure Kyle's heard about it. Mm-hmm. The Black National Anthem.
Yes, I've heard about
this. So we've been hearing this from the left-wing media, from the right-wing media, me and the handsome conservative. We had some fun with it, but basically the NFL has now said for week 1, and not moving forward, and I think it's only one game they're going to do it on. Maybe there's
it's 1 week.
The 1 week, but it's every game.
Every game. Okay, it is every game. So I had heard some conflicting there. I wasn't sure. But they're going to play Lift Every Voice, which is a kind of a gospel hymn, which is big, kind of in, some of the black churches. But it's not, I mean, am I wrong? Doesn't the title say Lift Every Voice?
You're right.
And isn't it actually the Negro national anthem and not the Black national anthem? Like the
both.
actual,
It was called both. Yeah. And I think, and
Censorship
before
in
I even
3,
really get
2,
into the,
1.
oh,
I think he's saying I'm being canceled.
Kyle's about to get
oh,
canceled.
no,
I'm
no,
not trying to be
that's all
canceled.
right.
I'm just simply pointing out that that's
I
the
can pass.
that's
Yeah.
the actual term that it.
No, it is. It is.
And
You're
they're
right.
just they're PCing it a little bit by calling it the Black National Anthem instead of that. My wife and I, we're we're not like, we're kind of indifferent on it. We're like, whatever, it's no big deal. But I have seen other people post like, so what happens if the white players take a knee during that? How much outrage is going to happen then?
That's a good point.
Yeah, it is a good point. I mean, and the thing is, I think that there's people on both sides using this the wrong way. And now the left is obviously, the left is using this to pander. The NFL is using it to pander. This is what I call virtue signaling for dollars.
Mm-hmm.
NFL is just doing what other corporations are doing. I don't necessarily think that it's a bad thing that they're doing it. I don't trust their motives. But I mean, if they lift every voice and sing, fine. I mean, it's only for the first week. I mean, you're not talking about, and they're not replacing the national anthem. They're not replacing the Star Spangled Banner. It's still going to be sung, and it's going to be sung for the rest of the season. So, I mean, it's really not that big of a deal. So, but on the right, you have a lot of people reacting as if it's supposed to be divisive. But and here's the thing: these people are just ignorant as to the history of the song, which is totally understandable. Most white people, most white conservatives aren't going to had no idea that this song even existed, because it's not like they teach it in schools. They're not teaching it elsewhere. But what's interesting is that when this song really came out, which was 100 years ago, I mean, but as time has gone on, there have been white churches that have been singing the song, churches in other countries. So it's called the Black National Anthem or the Negro National Anthem. It's been called both over the years, but it was only given that nickname like say around 1920 or so, because the NAACP recognized the role that this song was playing in the overall civil rights movement and the struggle for Black people to go from slavery to Jim Crow and pushing towards freedom. And it was also using during the civil rights movement as well. So that term Black National Anthem, I think people assume that the left had just made that up and just to put it in the game, just to divide.
Yeah, that's got historical context to it.
Yeah, and I guess what really bothers me, it doesn't bother me that say white conservatives were ignorant about it, because like I said, you're not learning about this in school. I mean, I can't blame you. It's two things. It's the lack of willingness to actually look into it, but really it's the pundits on our side and the media and the leaders on our side who just reacted without bothering to look into it and see what this actually meant. That was highly irresponsible. And my thing is that I want more Black people to come to the conservative side. I want that with every fiber of my being. So anything that kind of gets in the way of that, or that's going to repel the Black community, is going to irk me.
Yeah.
So I know that there are Black people who may be conservative, but they vote Democrat. This is one of those things that keeps that happening.
Yeah.
This isn't just this, but this is just one of those things
I
they look at when they give the side eye, basically.
I see this as kind of almost a trap by the left for us, because listen, I'm with you on this, right? Like, okay, it's not replacing the national anthem. They're not playing it after the national anthem, therefore putting it on a pedestal above the national anthem. And then, if you ever been to an NFL game, there's bands on the field before every game playing other songs, whatever, right? There's other music happening at the same time. There's God Bless America before every game. There's whatever local band comes out or some local singer comes out and sings a song. That's kind of just how it works, because there's a lot of time to fill before the game starts, right? From when you get into the stadium to when the game starts.
Yeah,
so
it's just filler.
It's filler. Now, this is, as you said, this is a song that has certain connotations to some people, but for everybody else, there's nothing about this song that is only for Black people. That was the thing I said to the Handsome Conservative, is like, I don't think they're going to make white people put earmuffs on and not listen. Like, this isn't the Black national anthem and white people can't listen to it. You better cover your ears. This is a song. It's a gospel song. It's a Christian song.
If it's a gospel song, I'm honestly, as a Christian, like, that to me is cool that they're going to play a gospel song. But I don't care what you call it.
But what we're seeing is we're seeing those redneck conservatives. And this is where for me, the sesame, because, okay, being a conservative to me means that I also have to accept, like, I have my beliefs. And in being a conservative, I feel that I have the right to my beliefs. But I also feel that you have the right to yours. And that I don't, as much as you can't step on mine, I can't step on yours. I can't tell you what to do. And so somebody's like, oh, screw the NFL. It's like, okay, then don't watch. It's that simple. Turn the damn TV off if you don't like it. If it's not for you, it's not for you. You don't have to watch it. But what you're doing when you come out and you're against this is you're saying, we can't even give this little idiot. The left's going to take this, and they're going to turn this narrative to you guys won't even give the black community this little thing.
Yep.
You won't even give the black community this one song for 1 week. You are all racist. And guys, we're falling into the trap.
Don't give them the ammo.
Don't give them the ammo. Like, what we should be doing right now is we should be saying, who cares, right? Let them have it. It's theirs. They can do whatever they want. And then it's like me and the handsome conservative yesterday. We know they're pandering. We know that it's them. It's them. Let them look like they're the ones pandering to the community. Let them look like they're the ones that are being racism of low expectations. Don't give them the fodder to come back after us. And we've had homosexuals on this show. We've had blacks on this show. We've had people of all different denominations and different kind of things on this show. We've had Democrats on this show. And the thing about it is that if you want people to move over to the Conservative Party, what you have to do is you have to convince them that we are the party that says you can be whatever you want to be, regardless of how I feel personally about it. I'm still going to allow you to do what you want to do. And we've talked about it with the gay community. We keep giving them reasons to not trust us. Yep. And this is something where if we fall for the trap here, black people are just going to say, see, I'm not going to go over there because they're all racist. They won't even let us have a song before a football game. It's a song, guys. And it's not even a divisive song. It's like it's not like they're playing, back that ass up or something. They're playing a gospel song. And by the way, they do play songs like that before games.
Yeah, exactly. And like during the Super Bowl, I mean, we get all mad when they're having these raunchy Super Bowl shows, but now they're going to do a Christian song, which, by the way, you read the lyrics to that song, that is conservatism written all over. That is a conservative song. That is not a progressive song. That is a conservative song. But the thing is, people just react without knowing. And you brought up how this is like a trap from the left. And I've had other people say that to me, too. I don't know if they thought that deeply into it, but if they did, what does it say about the conservative movement that we fall for it so easily?
Fucking time.
And here's the thing. What the argument that you just made about them pandering, that's what we should be criticizing. Because if when we're doing that, we're actually in solidarity with black people, because black people are complaining about it, too, on the left and on the right. So when I see conservatives calling that out, I'm giving them a standing ovation, because those folks get it. But it's the ones that just say, oh, this is divisive, this is this or that. No, don't just listen to what the pundits are telling you, because they will lie to you, or they will repeat a lie that they have been deceived by themselves. Yep. So look into it yourself. And I think that this could have been a really good opportunity for conservatives to show, hey, yeah, we actually want you over here. Yep. Like when everything went down with George Floyd and with Ahmaud Arbery, the majority of conservatives, white and black, condemned them. They condemned what happened to those black men. I was proud. I was very proud. But I still recognize that we still have work to do on the right, and that's why I focus a lot on the right, because my background is in sales. I've been in sales for over a decade. And one thing I know is that for a salesman, it is nearly impossible to sell a product that you don't believe in. Mm-hmm. And right now, I can't go to a black person and say, yeah, come join the Republicans, because I know what they're going to see when they get over there. I'd rather it be a product that I can really sell passionately and then take it to them.
Well, and that's a good thing, because, we see on the left that they're so convinced that they're not racist, that they're the party of unity and equity, that they're, they don't need to make any improvements on their party. Now, there's some of the Bernie side that wants the left to make some changes and do some different things, and will actually criticize from the left. But most people on the left are so unwilling. But the problem is that the right has fortified back into that on itself. And this is why Kyle and I, we're not Republicans, right? We're conservatives. Right. I'm a constitutionalist.
Me too.
That if you want to tell me that you're homosexual, then that, to me, do I agree with it as a Christian? Do I think it's a sin? I think it's a sin. But do I think you have every right to be a homosexual in this world and choose for yourself your path? And do I have the right to tell you what to do by the government? No, because I don't want the government telling me what to do and how to live my morality. So therefore, I have to say, I don't agree with your morality, and that's fine. You can live your morality. right? You can live how you want to live because it's your right to do so. And that's what I think we got to get in this country. And that's where we have to start outreaching is that, look, we don't care how you live your life. As long as you do so, allowing everybody else to live theirs the way they see fit. So if I look at, an African-American man and I say, look, and I'm going to bring this topic up because this is a topic that we hear about all the time from the left. If you want to smoke marijuana, smoke marijuana. I don't really give a crap about you smoking marijuana. I really don't care. It doesn't affect me until you get on the highway and you're driving while under the influence.
Right.
So
yeah,
I know that the majority of black people actually probably don't smoke marijuana, right? That's a stereotype that the left has put on us. But at the same time, it's about having the freedom to do so and about having the ability to do the things that you want to do without having somebody else, a Karen, tell you what you can and can't do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and I think that message resonates. And one thing I always say, I mean, because what we're talking about is really more like libertarianism than at least traditional conservatism, right? But I've always said, like, if the Libertarian Party, one, wasn't a joke, and two, actually wanted to go into black communities, they probably do better than Republicans would, because black people want to be left alone. I think the same can be said for a lot of white people, for Hispanics. People just want to be left alone, and even with like the LGBT community, like that stance, I totally get it. I mean, here in Texas, the Texas Republican Party has been ostracizing the Log Cabin Republicans, which is our
first interview.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. So yeah, you already know what I'm talking about. I mean, they've been ostracizing them. I'm like, wait a minute. You can't alienate people and expect to still win.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody is a member of the LGBT community and they want to fight for freedom, limited government, they want to fight for the Constitution, you really want to alienate those folks because you disagree with what they do in the bedroom?
Yep.
Good luck. I mean, that's ridiculous.
And that state senator from Tyler or wherever he is, that they don't believe in God the same way we do. That doesn't, okay, you just ruled out everybody who's not you individually, right? Because nobody believes in God the same way. We're brothers. Kyle and I are brothers. I'm Catholic, he's Lutheran, right?
Yeah.
And we'll have differences in how we believe in God and how we perceive things. There's a lot similar because we grew up in the same house and we were taught by the same people. So there's a lot there that's similar, but there's also a lot there where we can disagree and we can have debates. But
that's in my marriage, that's our biggest point of contention, is because my wife is Catholic and I'm Lutheran, and if it's not for that, like our marriage is very peaceful, but we have very big differences in like praying to saints. I will not get behind that. Ross, I know that's your thing, and it's cool that you want to do that, but I personally cannot.
So the argument for you is that we're praying to saints. Our argument is that we're
you're praying
through
saints. I get you, but I know I can also tell you, in my opinion, that that's not what you're doing. But okay,
and that's perfectly
it's
fine.
Cool. We're not gonna get into that.
But you guys can still build together. I mean, you can still build together. You can still do things together. You can still fight for the areas where you do agree.
Yeah.
And the good thing, I think the conservative movement in general is moving more towards that. I've been seeing it. So I think it's a great sign. I mean, we're not like the neocons of the early 2000s where we want to go to war with everybody and we want to control people's behavior just like the left does, but just in a different way. We're actually getting back to what the founders intended, for people to be free. And even the founders didn't really live up to a lot of this stuff either, because they had laws on certain types of behavior that they shouldn't have had. But now we're getting into a society or into a conservative movement that is actually arguing for freedom, more freedom.
Yeah, I would say we're kind of a hybrid of the libertarian conservative party. We're that conservatarian.
Conservatarian,
because I call it constitutionalist.
Yeah, the same 6 to 1 half dozen the other.
It's simply that. Like, okay, this is what the Constitution says. So as a conservative, right, we're supposed to be all about exactly what the Constitution says and defending that to the letter, right? Well, okay, so explain to me, if freedom of speech, right, if you want to kneel for the national anthem, I might not like it. I might think you're an idiot, and I might hate it, but you have freedom of expression. I can't tell you to stop, and I have my freedom of expression. I can stop watching your product.
Criticize it.
I can criticize it, but I can't tell you by law that you have to stop. And I think, we see a lot of that where, like, okay, President Trump has criticized the kneelers. Okay, that's his right to do so. He doesn't think they should do it, but he hasn't passed an executive order saying that they can't kneel anymore.
Right.
He hasn't gone to Congress and
he did put pressure on the NFL, though, to put rules in that they had to. So And
Yeah,
the
I can
NFL
see
did
that.
put
Yeah.
rules into effect. Now, the reason I would say that we're more like I said, the conservatarian, is because we actually believe that the government does have a role in our lives. You know, whether it be infrastructure, protection from like with police and fire department, whether it be taking in taxes so that we can then improve on all those things. We do believe the government does have its role there, whereas your traditional libertarian is, 100% taxation is theft, and the government shouldn't do anything to impede my freedoms and that nature. So we're not a full bore libertarian in that matter, but we're not the government controls everything aspect of our lives either. So we're kind of that hybrid where that we're conservatives, but we also have some libertarian tendencies about us. So it's kind of, like I said, just kind of that hybrid.
I'm just not an anarchist. I believe that the government has a role in our lives, right? Like, okay,
Yeah.
the government has a right to enforce property rights, right? We need that. We need government to protect people from other people. We shouldn't have government to protect us from government. We should have government to protect us from other people. And so there's things, and I'm a free market economist. I think we've talked about that before, that I'm about to start a PhD in economics. So, this is one of those things where, when I look at free market stuff, I look at like the Masterclass Bake Shop in Colorado. If they would have just used the free market, they'd have put that guy out of business in about 5 days. But because they used the government and tried to use the club of the government, they made him a millionaire. Right? Because what did they do, right? If they would have just shut up and stopped going to his business and told the people in their local community, like, okay, hey, he doesn't support what we support. We don't want you going there. Please don't go there. His business would have suffered. But the moment they made it a national news thing, then all of a sudden, all the people who agreed with him from around the country came in to support him.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, he's a millionaire overnight because they've made him a star amongst the people who agree with him. Whereas if they would have just shut up, he would have gone away. He would have just simply gone away. The free market has more ability for social change. And I've gotten into this actually, I was replying to one of your tweets, and another guy who's, I guess, maybe a follower of yours or whatever, we went back and forth for a while, where I said, the free market has done more for social change as far as desegregation and things of that nature, because we've allowed, business owners saw that they were going to profit from having black people work for them. And the one is the Brooklyn Dodgers, right? The owner of the Brooklyn Dodgers said, I'll make more money having Jackie Robinson on my team. Yes, I'll piss people off, but I'm going to make money off of this. And it's going to make me money. It's in my self-interest to have Jackie Robinson play on my football team. And all the baseball team. I'm sorry, you are correct. Although he probably could have played baseball, right? Football too. The dude was a big dude. I mean, he was a built dude. So anyway, players at the time didn't like it on the team, the white players. The fans of the Dodgers didn't like it at the time. But then he came on the field and he produced. And he was the best baseball player on the field. And they said, you know what? We like winning more than we like being racist.
Yep.
And
even in the times of Jim Crow, a big reason why those laws were passed is because businesses weren't discriminating, because they wanted the money.
Yeah.
Free market. They had to pass those laws to force them to discriminate, which I'm not saying that the business owners didn't want to discriminate. There was plenty of that too.
They didn't need a lot of excuse, but they took it when they had it. Yeah.
Yeah. But then there were a lot of businesses that didn't want to discriminate. They just wanted to serve their customers and make their money. So they had to pass those laws. So, they use the government to subvert the free market, basically.
Well, and I've had this argument lately. So Herbert Hill, who I'm sure you're familiar with the history of Herbert Hill, the labor director for the NAACP for about 45 years. And all through the Jim Crow era. And he wrote extensively about how unions and minimum wage laws were used to keep blacks out of northern communities and unable to work. How unions were built to keep blacks out of Baltimore, Boston, Detroit, all of these areas. It was built to keep those laborers from coming in there because white people were scared that the blacks were going to come from the South and displace them because the blacks would work for less. And it's a lot we hear today from Republicans of, well, the Mexicans will do the work cheaper. Yeah, they will. And that's not necessarily, there's a good and a bad to that. I agree that we need limited immigration, that we need to, not just import every laborer over here that we can. But at the same time, if you want your orange juice to keep costing $2 a gallon, we don't need to be paying $7 a gallon to pick the damn oranges.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, and I do think that, like you said, that the free market can affect change much better than the government can in most cases. I mean, the government is good for just a few things. I mean, and the way I see it, the government is basically a gun. So, I mean, going back to the Masterpiece Bakery, they pointed a gun at this guy. They tried to point a gun at this guy. That's going to get a more visceral reaction from the other side than it was if you just tried to use the free market. Now, they may have still tried to use the free market to fight back against them. But that's the way that it should be. Like on the Red and Black show that we just did that came out earlier today, we talked about this Netflix movie or TV series where Paris Jackson, Michael Jackson's daughter, is playing Jesus, and she's playing a lesbian Jesus, which doesn't make sense. But there's a lot of people that are trying to get Netflix to not show that show because it's offensive to Christians. But they're not trying to use the government to do it. They're doing a petition. They're coming out, and whether I agree with it or not, if they are going to fight against it, they're using the free market. Yeah. It's why I don't necessarily get mad when they come against Fox News and Tucker Carlson. I believe they're morally wrong because I don't think that it's right to do it, but they're going about it in a way where they're trying to use the free market rather than trying to shut him up. But the problem, though, is that they are pushing more for government to be able to step in, because when they control the government, then they can shut people down. And that's even what's happening with Facebook right now. Like Joe Biden is trying to silence Trump on Facebook. Yep. This is a presidential candidate trying to silence his opponent on Facebook instead of just engaging with his ideas. It's chilling to see what they're trying to bring to the country.
Well, and the thing is that they say, well, it's misinformation from the right. The misinformation is about who believes and who doesn't believe it, right? Because we've seen lots of things in history, the hydroxychloroquine argument. Right? Yes. It was misinformation that Trump kept saying hydroxychloroquine would cut deaths when it came to it. And people from the CDC came out and said, oh, Trump's being an idiot. And then 2 days ago, CNN, real silently, real early in the morning, released an article that says, actually, it's now pretty much proven hydroxychloroquine, if given or if administered early enough and not, okay, yes, if the person's already dead, it's too late to give it to them and it'd be effective. But if given early enough, when first symptoms sign, it can, and okay, no, not just hydroxychloroquine. It's got to be mixed with these other things and taken in conjunction. But there is positive benefit to doing it. And the left is just silent on that, right? Okay, CNN put it out, and no, we're not gonna say another word about it. We're not gonna admit we were wrong. We're not gonna make a big fuss about it. We're just gonna hope that everybody lets it go. And so you can, when you can say what's misinformation and what's not misinformation, then you can control what is actually information, instead of allowing people to choose for themselves.
Exactly. And a lot of what they say is misinformation is opinion. It's like if I go on Facebook and I say, I don't know, cookies and cream ice cream is the best ice cream, it's my favorite. And then you go on and say, oh, that's fake news, that's misinformation. Let's have Facebook take that down. That's a lot of what they do. So, I mean, they may disagree with some of the facts, but that's where the debate should come in. If President Trump is wrong about hydroxychloroquine, which it looks like he wasn't, then debate him on it. Prove him wrong. Don't go and try to get his post taken off of Twitter or get his post taken off of Facebook just because you don't like it. But they are pushing more for that. And I think as conservatives, we need to be vigilant on this stuff because they are going to push this through if they can.
Well, and that's like the Washington Post article. Trump said all the worst crime rates are in Democrat cities. And the Washington Post comes out and says, he said all. So they use the word all, which, okay, fine. He did say all, but one is a Republican city out of the top 20.
No, that was brilliant. That's one thing that I can admire Trump on, because he is very good at persuasion. And if you listen to Scott Adams, if you read his book, you know exactly what Trump was doing there. The left fell into his trap on that because he basically forced them to admit that the most dangerous cities are run by Democrats. By using the word all and exaggerating, he knew he was exaggerating. He knows that's not true. But he exaggerated because he knew that they would fight back against it, and in so doing, draw more of a spotlight on that. So that if a normal person sees it, they're like, well, wait, he said all, and yeah, it's not all, but wait a minute, most of them are. So what's the issue here? That's exactly what Trump did.
And what'll happen though is Facebook and Twitter will then go and use that article that said, you know, he was wrong. There was this one city that's not, and then they'll go and mark all these other articles that are saying, you know, 90% of the dangerous cities are democratically run, and they'll use that to then say that is a false article and fact check it and make you think that, oh, it's not really true. And then the people who only look at the headlines or only look at the fact checks, they'll go, oh, well, then it must be a lot of Republican cities. Just like, you know, that you had this article come out about the Irish indentured servants and how they were, in effect, slaves, and they were over here before the African slaves were, and they were cheaper. So, but it's that article got marked false because, oh, they were indentured servants. They could eventually buy their freedom. Well,
yeah,
that was true of the Africans that came over here too. They just weren't given as much of opportunity. But if they could raise the funds, they were able to buy their own freedom.
That depends on who. That depends on where they were and who. Yeah.
And who had them. Yeah.
So yeah, we had this, you know, with Olivia Rondeau. You know, we had this conversation with her because she was talking about reparations, and I said, okay, but
that's my sis right there.
Okay, are we gonna have reparations then for the Irish and for the Italians and for the Slavics, and are we gonna have reparations for all those? What about the Jewish people? You know, slavery doesn't, you know, slavery was never good, but it was used by almost every culture until we decided to get rid of it. And you know, there's a lot to talk about with reparations because who pays for it, you know, and Olivia, we kind of went back and forth because she goes, well, the taxpayer shouldn't have to pay for it. It should be government money. And I went, okay, wait, you know, okay, where does the government get its money? If the government's paying for it and they're just debt financing it, that just means we owe it. It's our money. We still have to pay it. Yes, we're not raising taxes this year for it, but eventually this debt is going to get to the point where we're not going to be able to survive it anymore. $26 trillion right now. Every American owes $72,000 to the United States of America to pay off the debt. So we can't just keep adding to it. We got to have it all. I'm not against the conversation of reparations. I just want to know how it's going to work and
who's paying for it. And
well, because the other thing about it is I've already heard some of the people on the left saying, "Oh, this doesn't need to be a one-time thing. This needs to be a ongoing thing." And it's like, okay, well, that's where I start getting confused about it because it's what is it? And how, you know, it's like, okay, somebody were to kill my son. And God forbid, right? Knock on wood. Somebody was to kill my son and I got a settlement for wrongful death. That doesn't bring my son back. That doesn't justify the action. That doesn't make it okay. Yes, it makes it better, I guess, but it still doesn't make it okay. Like the action still occurred and I'm still deprived of the life of my son. So
yes,
money is not, we could talk about, okay, the fact that yes, there have been challenges to systemic opportunity within the black community and that there needs to be opportunities given, which is why I like Tim Scott. I like the opportunity zone idea. I brought up with Olivia that we could, instead of doing a cash payment, we could do, you know, better loan opportunities for black Americans to be able to start businesses, and we could give some tax incentives on that side because then we're using the free market to spur up and to to equal out that playing field that we have systemically in the past held down. But I don't necessarily agree with a cash payment because
then you'll have a lot of Rachel Dolezals being transracial and claiming to be black.
And also that
you're exactly right.
We see okay, we watch NFL players, right? And although there's some that become very, very rich, a lot of them are bankrupt. What is it? 2.5 years after getting out of the NFL, they're bankrupt because they never get to the spending mentality of spending money like a rich person. They keep spending money like a poor person, and poor people spend money. It's psychologically different, right? We always hear about, everybody always complains, well, you're rich. Why won't you just buy whatever? Because that's not how you get to be rich, right? You don't get to be rich by just spending all your damn money. You get to be rich by investing your money, utilizing your money, letting time values work, leveraging debts, things of that nature. So if we just gave money to people, I don't feel that it would actually benefit their lives. They would just have new TVs, new sneakers. They might pay off some debt. They might actually pay off some debt, but I doubt even that. They're just going to say, well, we'll get another one next year, which is the same thing would happen with the $1,200 stimulus we saw everybody. Well, we'll get another one in a month or two. They'll do another one.
Yeah, and the thing is, with reparations, I mean, in the past, I've just been opposed to it. Now I'm more willing to discuss it because, again, but it would depend on how they plan on doing it. And honestly, this is why I think that we need to have this conversation on the right, because we can be the adults in the room. We know what the left is going to do. First off, I don't even think the left even wants to do reparations because they want something to fight for.
Exactly.
Every single Democratic presidential primary candidate that was talking about reparations has no intention of doing anything about it. I think maybe there are some Democrats that want to actually do something to help, but most of them they want this issue. But the thing about reparations is I'm with you on it. It can't just be writing a bunch of checks. That's not going to help us long term. That's not going to rectify the damage. So if we were to use more free market options like that, that's what I'm open to. Now, I mean that it would take somebody a lot smarter than myself to figure all that out. But if they came with something that
I'm here for you, buddy.
That involve like business loans, or they involve like better educational opportunities, or tax breaks, or things like that, I'm more open to that than I am with just having a cash payments and other things that won't really do anything. I don't know if you saw that document that Ice Cube posted
a
few days ago, and I was looking at it, and some of it I was like, okay, all right.
There was a few things that were like, all right, yeah. I can see some of this, but
the rest of it was just too much government for me. Like, yeah. I'm like, no, dude, we're not doing it.
The requirement that businesses, have an equal amount of or more. And again, it's always or more. It's the or more that always gets me, because he didn't just want equal, and so, go back to meritocracy. Okay, do you deserve this or not? And I think there's options that we could say okay, we need to make sure that black people are getting the same economic, which is why I'm a school choice guy. I think that we have to start at the bottom, right? We can't start at college education, because what we see, there was a documentary a while back about a charter school out of Mississippi or Louisiana that was getting kids accepted to Yale, but then all the kids were failing out in the first semester. And it was all black kids, and it was all the kids are failing out or dropping out after the first or second semester because they just couldn't hack it. So that's
exactly what I was thinking of when I saw that on that document. I was like, that's not going to be good.
We can give them good grades in high school, but that doesn't better prepare them for life, right? Like, we shouldn't. It right now for me, public education is a race to the bottom. We teach to the lowest common denominator, which is why my kids don't go to public school. My kids are homeschooled, and I've got a lot of them. So I want my kids to have the best opportunity, so I'm going to let them race against themselves, not race against the kid who's very much slower than them. So American education to me is fundamentally failed. And what I think a mother in, let's say, Cypress, Texas, who says, you know what, this is not the best school educationally for my son, and I want to go over to the Woodlands because that's a better area, and I don't know the actual areas. So don't kill me on this, because I don't know which areas are better than others in Houston. I'm just making it for instance.
Let's make it relevant to Jeff. East of I-35 in Austin versus west of I-35.
Right, exactly. There you go.
So let's
East of I-35 in Austin, those schools over there are historically underperforming. Whereas just on the other side of the interstate, those are usually considered pretty good schools.
So let's say I'm sending my kid to Pflugerville and I want him to go to Westlake instead, right? There should be no penalty for a mother who says, you know what, I'm going to wake up early every morning and I'm going to drive my son over there. I'm going to drop him ass off at school. I'm going to let him go to school there where they have better resources, where they have better teachers, where the class sizes are more taken care of. And then I'm going to make the trek back over there, pick him up and bring him back. But there shouldn't be, oh, well, you got to pay a transfer fee, or, oh, you got to live in the district. No. I pay my property taxes, and property taxes get distributed back through the state. So I should be allowed to take my kid in my school district, and as long as I'm not advocating for sending a bus 2 hours down the street to pick up one kid, but I'm saying that if I'm willing to drive my kid, if I'm willing to make that personal sacrifice,
if you're able to do it,
there shouldn't be another obstacle in my way to doing so.
Yeah, and that's pretty much my point too. I mean, if you have the wherewithal to do it, you have the willingness to do it, you have the time to do it, there should be nothing stopping you. And I mean, and the majority of black people actually agree with school choice, but the people in the cities don't want them to have it. I wonder why. And I'm not saying that school choice is the only thing that's going to improve our education system, but and I don't think anybody's saying that. But I do think that is yet another thing that can help a lot of disadvantaged kids, not just black kids. I mean, there's white kids in the ghetto too. I mean,
and there's rural.
Hispanic, Asian. Yeah.
Kyle went to Dime Box High School in Dime Box, Texas. His graduating class was what, 7?
22.
Okay. So
biggest ever on record too.
Yeah, so that entire high school was kindergarten through 12th grade. I mean, they could put all of them in one building because there was just nobody there. Kyle would have gone to a different school, but there was transfer rules. We couldn't because we live in a rural school. That's a school that doesn't have very much resources. They didn't even have they couldn't even do flag football at his school. Like even six-man flag football.
They finally started a football program last year. They were one of like 5 schools in the state of Texas that didn't have at least 6-man football. Wow. And they finally started it last year, and I'm really jealous of those kids because I probably would have been okay at football. Like we played little league football growing up, and I was decently good at little league football, and a lot of my friends ended up going to Division I schools. Like I think I had 5 or 6 of my friends that I played little league football.
Turtle. A lot of them kids.
Jonathan, Philip Alexander, Gus Bob Horn.
Gus Bob was a tight end at LSU. Yeah.
LSU. Jonathan went to Arizona State to be offensive lineman. Philip went to the Air Force Academy.
That didn't end so good.
I didn't say how it ended. I said how it started. And now I think he actually works at A&M now. He did okay for himself.
So from a small community, a lot of these kids went to Division I. Gus Bob Horn was a tight end at LSU. Jonathan Lehman was a tight end at Arizona State.
Offensive lineman.
I thought he was playing tight end. Anyway, there's another story there. Don't Google his name. It'll probably come up with some bad stuff. We know the guy. Dominique Crawford went to Baylor. His older brother went to Baylor. Johnson went to Texas State. We had a lot of kids from our community who played Little League football with us, but because they went to Giddings High School and they got to keep playing football all through high school, then they had those opportunities. Whereas at the school that Kyle went to, I went to Giddings because my parents found a way. I think we're out of the statute of limitations at this point. That
they live with grandma.
I moved in with my grandmother who lived in that school district, even though we never stayed there one day. But this shouldn't have to be where I'm having to figure out a way around the law. This should be a way where I'm saying
you shouldn't even have to do any of that. I
right?
mean, that's ridiculous.
So I'm not saying that there's not opportunities, socioeconomic opportunities that we can do for the elderly, for adults. But let's start with the children, right? Let's start with the kids, and let's start making their lives better. Let's start making it to where they're on the same educational footing as everybody else.
And Ross's point that he loves to make, so I'm going to steal it from him since he hasn't made it yet, is if the kids from Pflugerville all of a sudden start showing up in Westlake, and the Westlake parents don't like that, what are the Westlake parents more motivated to do now? They're more motivated to go fix Pflugerville's high school so that the kids will go back to Pflugerville and they don't have to deal with them.
Yeah, I was actually going to make that point
too. It's the right thing to do, but it's a thing that will happen. It's a motivation that will happen.
If I want to make
free market, that is the right thing to do.
Yeah,
that's the free market right there.
If I want to make you care about something, the fastest thing I can do is to make it affect you.
Yep.
Right. So. Yep. We have school, and okay. So there's one or two possible causes here. Possible externalities of this. Number one is that those parents will be more willing to have government funds shifted to those schools to make those schools better. Number two is, since kids are going to leave that school, the remaining kids are now going to have lower class sizes. They're going to have more money per student able to be spent on them. So you're going to alleviate the teacher burden in those schools where they're overpopulated. They got too many kids per class. They can't get the one-on-one attention. If we can get 10% of those students to leave, right now, that makes the teacher-student ratio better. That means that the school is going to get the same amount of money. They can spend more money per student in those individual schools, which means better resources for those kids. So we're going to equal out the playing field across the board. I understand the argument of, well, this is my community and I want my money staying in my community. But the whole thing about public school is that we're trying to give everybody the same footing. If you don't like that, send your damn kid to private school, right? You have that option as well. And I'm not on the voucher system. I'm not. I'm purely not on the voucher system. And I'll explain why. I don't think but the government money should be spent on things that other people don't agree with. And although I personally agree with religious schools, and the Supreme Court did just decide that we could send the money to religious schools, I don't think we should be able to force people. I don't want my government money to go on abortion. I can agree that, okay, I don't want your government money going to a religious school if you don't agree with it. But if we simply just said every public school in the United States or in the state, per state, that any kid within that state could go to any school within that state that's a public school and just simply walk in and enroll, that alleviates a lot of issues and starts getting a lot of things better, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, and with the opponents of school choice, I mean, I've never really heard them argue why it would be a bad thing, like what harm would it do, or if they do, it's very minimal of the harm that it could do. And I get and I get that in certain cases you have to refine it, you have to make sure that it works the right way. Like with the charter school program, in some cases they've been better as far as education. In some cases it's been about the same. But that doesn't mean that the idea is bad. That just means you have to tweak it. You have to work on it. There's far more benefit to school choice than there is drawback. But the drawback for the Democrats, like you said earlier, like at the city level, especially in black cities, you say that the education system is failing. I say, no, it's not. It's working. It's working exactly as intended. And I know that's very cynical and skeptical on my part, but I don't care. I think that a lot of this is done deliberately.
I think a lot of this, and you pointed to it earlier, these are campaign issues, right? And our grandfather Kyle, Grandpa Wimp, he always told us the thing about illegal immigration, we'll never get rid of it because Democrats want the votes, Republicans want the cheap labor. So neither one of them has an incentive to actually fix this problem. Neither one of them has, and this is why they all hate Trump on this, because there's a lot of Republicans. That's why there's no wall. The Republicans don't like it because the Koch brothers went from being they're the conservatives and they're the evil Reds, to all of a sudden the Koch brothers are donating to candidates against Trump because they simply don't like this, because they're big into I call them big business Republicans. Other people call them corporate Republicans. Other people call them rhinos. I call them big business Republicans. They want big businesses to see. They don't give a shit about us at the local level. They want low taxes for themselves. They want low inheritance rates, all that kind of stuff. They don't really give a shit about the normal guy. And that's where Trump is a little bit different, is he's kind of done policies that affect the lower guy. Corporate wages were rising slower than personal wages under Trump for the first 2.5 years until we had this shit, right? The tax rates were benefiting the people at the bottom more than they were benefiting the people at the top. And that's just, we can see that. We know that's true. But yet they don't want to, and I agree with you. They want a campaign issue. And if they fix it, it's no longer a campaign issue. It's no longer, vote for me because we need to fix this. Maxine Waters has been running on the same shit for 40-something fucking years in Los Angeles. And I promise you that her district of LA has not gotten any better.
No, and it's not going to. I mean, really, I mean, and you're about to bring me into one of my other sticking points. The Democrats know that they can do this stuff because they know that they have no competition. They know that the Republicans aren't going to challenge them, so they can do whatever the hell they want. And I don't know how familiar you are with Sunny Johnson, but she says, if you want to be the party of the poor, if they want to be the party of the poor, they have to keep you poor. So they have no incentive to change any of this stuff. Because even when the black population starts to rise up against it, well, who are they going to vote for? You're either going to vote for somebody on the left, or you're going to vote for somebody on the left. That's
the further left. Yeah, those are your options, right?
The further left. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you've made that argument over the last couple of weeks, and I saw that you said, look, we keep complaining that they keep voting for Democrats, yet there's no Republicans running in these districts. So there's no Republican for them to vote for. And the GOP is simply saying we don't care about these districts because we don't feel we're going to win, so we're just not even going to put money into it. We're not even going to run a candidate. And then that just, again, that falls back into that trap of the Republicans don't care about you. They're not even going to run a candidate in this district.
Yeah, I mean, and for the ones who actually do run, they don't get any support from the national or state level party. And I know this because I've talked to some of them. I can't name them, but I've talked to candidates, minority candidates who want to run in these areas, and they try to, but they just don't get any support. The Democrats have a huge political machine, and the only way to defeat them is with another huge political machine. Unfortunately, all we got is the GOP, who doesn't really want the votes. Now, I do think that is going to change because they're going to become obsolete if they don't change their ways in a few decades. But I think more and more we're starting to see more and more conservatives wake up to this. But then it's going to get to the point to where we have to pressure the GOP to actually start being the party of Lincoln again.
Yeah. Well, the GOP has been a long way from that for a long time. The GOP has been the party For better or for worse, everybody says we're the party of the billionaires. We're not the party of the billionaires. We're the party of the millionaires, because billionaires overwhelmingly donate to the left.
Yep.
Because, and I've argued this economically, $15 an hour minimum wage benefits Jeff Bezos. It doesn't hurt Jeff Bezos. It hurts his competition,
Yes,
which
it
costs
does.
him more money than the additional labor would cost him. So
Regulations too.
regulations, right? So Jeff Bezos' biggest fear at night, the thing that wakes him up most, is that somebody else is going to create a company that's going to displace his. Not that Walmart's going to lower their prices by 10%, because he can deal with that. He can handle that, right? He can handle Target. He can handle Walmart. He can handle those. His business, because his whole thing is that he came in, he disrupted the market. He changed the way the market operates. His biggest concern is that somebody else is going to do the same thing to him, and that he won't be able to control that. And so the way he can control that is by getting the government to make it so hard that people won't even try.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, because a lot of those regulations, a lot of the taxes, you know, the $15 minimum wage, you're right. Corporations, the big boys, they want that stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people don't really understand that. They're thinking, oh, these guys are just so greedy. They don't want to be regulated. They don't. No. They want the regulations. Facebook, they want social media to be regulated. Mark Zuckerberg even called for it a couple years ago, because he knows that they can afford to pay to keep up with those regulations. He knows that that they can afford to pay the additional taxes to the government, but they also know that the small upstarts can't. Mm-hmm. So that's why they don't want somebody like Trump or even somebody else who's going to decrease regulations, because that evens the playing field a little bit more.
Exactly. That's one of the things, like, as a small business owner myself, I got into a little bit of a issue with my business because I was served a cease and desist, because the Texas A&M University, where I went to school and where I was running my business off of their campus, I was doing a tailgating and catering function. Well, I was telling people that I would go and reserve their tailgating spot for them, as well as set up the tailgate. And that was where I got in the hot water. Was like, A&M said, you can go reserve a spot for somebody, or you can set up their tailgate, but you can't offer to do both. We have a contract with this other corporation that says that they have that exclusivity, that they're the only ones that are allowed to offer that. So I then had to hire someone to go reserve the spots for me or set up the tailgates for me. I couldn't do both at the same time. I found a way around it with a student organization and was able to do it. But then me and my wife ended up getting pregnant, and we thought about just the logistics of trying to run a business on game day with a child. Found someone who was willing to buy the company from me and sold out. But, you know, that became a big hurdle for me, because I was having to find ways around this, because this other bigger company could afford to do it because they had this exclusive contract with the university, whereas I was offered the opportunity to bid on it, or to submit a bid for that contract, but the contract was written to where someone like me was going to be very... I would have not made any money doing so, because of the logistics and the manpower I would have had to have immediately ballooned to be able to fulfill the contract that they pretty much wrote for this other company. So it was disheartening, but, you know, I figured out a way around it for a while, and then I saw the writing on the wall and just got out. But, you know, I at least gave it the good old college try and did make some money for a while. Yeah.
I mean, with the bigger corporations, I mean, they have the deck stacked in their favor, and the government helps them do it. So that's why we need people in office who are actually conservatives and who actually want to make a change. Because with who they have in here now, I mean, Trump can't get his agenda across, because it's not just the Democrats who are fighting him. The Republicans want the status quo. I mean, the question keeps being asked, what's going to happen after Trump? Like, say, if he loses in November, or even if he wins after 2024, what's going to happen? Well, if things stay the same, the GOP is just going to go right back to the status quo, because that's what they want anyway. That's why it's important to highlight candidates who are running, who are actually going to fight for the country and for the people, and not just for a select few. And that's on both sides. I mean, because The left has their issues too, and I've talked to people on the left who don't like everything that's going on over there. But it's going to take people on both sides who are willing to call out their sides for not doing what they said that they were going to do.
Yeah, and that's we've and that's why I think the right, we have to start making these appeals to the inner city, right? We have to start making these appeals. We can sit on the outside. We keep saying, "Why don't you guys get it? They're not for you. They're against you." And we can do all that, and all we do is sound like redneck fucking hillbillies, because that's all we're doing is standing out here going, "Don't you guys get it?" We've got to start making these inroads, and what we've got to do is we've got to start showing how our policies are better for everyone. And we talked about this with Olivia Rondeau, because the right has consistently said, we're not going to be the party that panders to one side or the other.
Oh God, I hate that.
But
that's Sesame Street right there.
Yeah, but at the same time, you do have to explain to people, okay, this is how this affects you. So we can write a policy such as school choice that benefits everybody. But then we can say, when we message it to the black community, we can message it specifically how it benefits them. And we can specifically message it to the rural community how it benefits them. But it's the same policy. It's just, it's marketing, right? You market the same product in different ways to different people. Some people listen to the radio. So you have to market that product on the radio differently than you market to people who watch TV. And if you want to get the 18 to 24-year-old segment, then it's all about, hey, you're going to be cool and sexy and you're going to have the thing all your friends want. And if you're marketing it to the 55 to 65, this is the luxury experience. This is the top of the line. This is the thing that's going to make your life just nicer. You don't message it the same way to different audiences, and people on the right need to start understanding that you can take that exact same policy and just say how it's going to affect that person's life and make it where they feel like they're the ones being prioritized. Whether or not the policy is specifically aimed at them or not, you can still message it in a way that makes them feel that and this is where the Republicans have failed. We haven't prioritized the inner city. We haven't prioritized this community. We can, but we also have got 20 years of a bad stigma sticking against us that we got to start fighting against.
Yeah, more like 60 years, actually. I mean, and when you mentioned pandering, like when people bring that up to me, I'm like, wait a minute, wait, hold on a second. So you mean to tell me that the GOP campaigns in rural areas and suburban areas to white voters, that's not pandering, but once the skin color changes, now it's pandering? Mm-hmm. No, I'm not asking you to do anything special. I'm just asking you to engage with the black voter the same way that you engage with the white voter. Engage with the Hispanic voter in the same way that you engage with the white voter. You don't hear them insulting white people by race. You don't hear them saying, oh, you guys are on a plantation. They may insult individuals, but they're not insulting white people. But you'll prop up people who insult black people into whatever they think they're going to do. It's not going to work. I mean, and I don't know if you're familiar with the Empower America Project, but this is a group. They're doing great things. You might want to check them out, because this is led in part by Senator Tim Scott, and also Jimmy Kemp, who is the son of Jack Kemp, who basically was trying to do what we're talking about decades ago. And so this organization basically focuses on supporting minority and female conservative candidates in certain areas to try to get them to win local elections. They helped to get a couple of candidates elected last year at the local level. And the local level is where it counts. So yeah, the federal level is important, but we need to get in there at the local level. So this is what Empower America does. And what they do is they train these candidates. They have a whole like seminar on it. And I think it's like a week long or something like that. And they coach them. They coach them on media appearances. They do mock interviews. They really train them to go out there and get their message across. And what they focus on, because I got to interview actually both Tim Scott and Jimmy Kemp, their focus is on policy and on being a leader, going into the community and talking to community leaders that can connect you to other people, and that you can, in that way, you get a really good feel for what that particular community needs. You're right. You don't use the exact same messaging with every single community. What you do is you find out what they need, and then you apply a conservative solution. And I think that a lot of what's going to make people afraid of this is that at first it's not going to work, because again, the GOP has abandoned the black voter for 60 years. It's going to take a long time to get that trust back. But if you're consistent it's going to work. It doesn't matter if they call you, if CNN calls you racist, because any black person will tell you if they know a white person, if they've broken bread with them, if they have a relationship, CNN can call that person racist all they want. They're not going to believe it. The actions will speak louder than the words. So there is no reason why this can't happen. I think a lot of it is just fear. A lot of it is just they don't think it's necessary, or it's just laziness or whatever. But the bottom line
I
is,
think it's apathy.
Apathy too,
because we're not going to win there, so why even try? Why spend money there if we're not going to? And because you're right, the thing is that it's going to take 10 years before we see any results from this, and it's all about, okay, what can we do to win now? And Kyle, I'm about to use your favorite word, incrementalism.
Yes.
I have been saying incrementalism. I ran for Congress out in West Texas. You might remember I popped up on the blotter.
That's why he has a blue check mark, and it's the only reason he has a blue check mark.
Still have a blue check mark, bro. It's there for life now. Can't get rid of it.
I don't know. They can take it away.
Anyway, the point is that the left spent 50 years getting us to this point. We have to start making the investments now if we want in 50 years to be able to start turning the tide backwards. Right? Yes. We can't. The problem with a lot of conservatives is it's all about doing it right now. Right? We need to get these policies right now. That's not how it works. Government's not meant to move quickly. And this is why I have a problem with a lot of conservatives, is because you're not actually conservative. Right? You're not wanting, you want to do the exact same thing you're accusing the left of doing, using the courts to get rid of abortion, using other things. We have to start by making a fold into the bottom of the, like you said, local elections.
Yep.
And then building up from there, and then building the federal government to come back over to our side, to be more conservative, to be more about individual liberty, to be more about personal freedom. But we can't do that if it's all or nothing. We can't do that if we're always so far ideologically that we can't make compromises. And we have to be willing to say, okay, we're going to have to let the left win a few here. And we're going to have to play ball to get there. And it's going to take time. But I think Trump's actually been very good about this because he's willing to negotiate. He comes out with a high number and then he'll settle for something lower, but he's at least getting something. And the border wall is the perfect example. He wanted $25 billion. The left said no. He said $25 billion, $25 billion, $25 billion, $25 billion. They said no, 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 no. They said we're giving you zero. But then they gave him $5 billion. So he went from zero, what they were going to give him, to $5 billion. No, he didn't get 25, and the left ran with that, right? Oh, we win. Trump wanted $25 billion, and we gave him 1/5 of that. But what's $5 billion divided by zero? Because that's an enormous percentage more than what you were going to give him, which was zero. Right. And now, whether you like it or not, he's putting up border wall. He got $5 billion to do it, and he's the first president in 20 years that's actually rebuilding shit down there and not just patching it back together.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people knocked him for that. Like, oh, he didn't get the full 25 billion. Well, how do you know he even wanted 25 billion? Maybe he wanted 5 billion. I don't know. I mean, I don't think he wanted that. I think he wanted more than that. But still, the fact that he was able to get something out of him. I mean, and especially not just the fact that he was able to get something out of him, but that he's Trump and he got something out of him. They hate him. Yeah. And he was still able to get something.
Well, and the argument is like when you go to your dad, right? When you went to your dad as a kid, and you wanted $5, did you ask your dad for $5? No, you asked your dad for 20. And then you asked your dad for 20, and you asked your dad for 20, and you asked your dad for 20, so that when you went and asked for 5, it didn't seem so bad.
Yep.
I was like, oh, well, shit, at least he's not asking for 20 anymore. I can spare 5. It's not 20. You set the expectation here, and then when you come in here, it's, oh, okay, well, that's more reasonable. I'm willing to do that.
Yeah, that's anchoring, basically. Yeah. It's a persuasion technique. Yeah, and so, yeah. And I don't know how much of the wall he'll get built. I know people are knocking him a lot on it. I mean, and if he gets the wall built, great. If not, I mean, because that was never going to solve the full problem. I mean, we need like mandatory e-verify. We need other ways to prevent illegals from coming here illegally. But I at least like that he brought the issue up and that he's trying to deal with it. I mean, there was a coworker I had, a black guy who doesn't like Trump, more on the left, but he said, one thing I will say about Trump, I'm glad that he brought up this illegal immigration issue and brought it to the forefront because this is an issue and it does disproportionately affect the black community as well. Yeah. But it also immigration overall, the way our immigration system works, affects all Americans as well, because even people coming here with H-1B visas and other types of visas that display American workers. I mean, we need to overhaul this. I mean, I'm not saying that we need to stop immigration. I'm not one of those that say no, just no immigration. But I do think that we need to place some more limitations on it. We probably need to accept fewer, at least for a while. But we need to overhaul this whole thing. I know Trump wants to do it, but like you said, both parties don't want him to do it. That's why it's important for us to get actual conservative candidates in there, not just in black areas and other areas as well. People who are actually going to do this and not just fall into the swamp.
So speaking of immigration, and since you yourself have done it, moving from California all the way to Texas, or as we call it, California East, there in Austin, what was it that prompted you to flee the communist state of California to the free market society that is Texas?
Yeah, it's funny because California wasn't even as bad as it is now. Back when I moved, it was about 9 years ago. I moved for work, really, but also because of cost of living. I mean, it's a lot less. What I like about Texas and Austin, I love Austin. I don't care how left it is. I love this city. It's just the way that life goes. Like I can actually experience life out here in California.
You like those property taxes that they just passed for you, buddy?
Yeah,
because it's about to go up like a son of a bitch.
Yeah, but still, I mean, back home, I mean, it would have been worse. I mean, I still miss California. I miss where I lived, but I love it out here. I mean, and just it's not so much the government part of it. It's just really the pace of life that I enjoy a lot. Like I would much rather go hang out in downtown Austin than to hang out in LA, because everything is just zoom, zoom, zoom. Everybody's busy, busy, busy. Everything's loud, loud, loud. Out here, it's more quiet. It's more of a slower pace. So, I mean, to me, the difference is very dramatic. And I don't know if you've been to LA or California.
I have.
Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about.
So the culture shock for me when I went to LA is because, you always hear on the news about how LA is the city of all the environmentalists and all these people who want clean atmosphere and clean air, and it's just we need to, all go live in the woods and eat mushrooms. And then I get there and it's like literally I get off the plane and we're driving down the road to our hotel and it's just mattresses and trash bags and it's like this is like filthy. And then we drive to go under a tunnel and you could see a homeless camp up on top of the hill, and it's like you don't see this shit in Texas. Like we keep our roadsides clean. And you can argue about the labor you can argue about the labor we use to do that, because we do use local prison populations to do that stuff. But that's a different conversation we can have.
Yeah.
But at the same time, our roadways are clean. There's a massive $10,000 fine if you get caught throwing trash out on the side of the road. The counties pay to have people shred the side of the roads and make them look half-ass decent. I didn't see any of that in California. And I worked in Bakersfield for a while. I worked up, through San Francisco, all around LA. It's filthy everywhere. It's not like it's just, in the major city. That's all through the state. It's like that. People are just, it's dirty. It's nasty. The people suck. I'll be honest. I'm sorry. People were rude.
San Diego was nice. I will give San Diego. It was actually very...
San Diego is nice. The one Republican city in California.
Yeah. Well, it's because of how much Navy is there. But, I mean, we went to La Jolla. We went to San Diego. We went to, all that area. And it was very pretty, very nice, very mild climate. Yeah.
That's what makes it suck, is that you go to, like, the Sequoia National Park, and it's a beautiful, breathtaking scenery. And then there's, trash bags just piled up everywhere because nobody gives a shit.
Yeah, it's bad. I mean, you have to go to like the ritzy parts of LA to not see that, but or to the suburbs. I mean, I was living out in Rancho Cucamonga. I mean, you go out to Rancho Cucamonga. I mean, Californians are just different. I mean, they're not going to be friendly right up front, but once you actually engage in conversation, then we get friendly. Whereas out here, I go into the store and everyone wants to talk to me, and I'm still trying to get used to that. And I've been here for 9 years.
So that's just weird. I said howdy to 5 or 6 people in California, and I got looked at like I was the biggest jackass in the world, just saying howdy to people. I'm like,
no, you can't just talk to people.
One of the funniest things to me is me and my wife went out there. My wife was working for Apple, and she had some corporate thing to do. So we went out there with a family, and we were going to take a vacation out of it. We were going to go to the beach, and we were going to kind of make a vacation out of it. And we get to our hotel, and we realize that our hotel is a dump. And I'm like, no, I'm not staying here. This is a dump, right? Like, I see people shooting heroin in the fucking parking lot. We're not staying here. So I had Best Western rewards. So I was like, okay, we'll go stay in a Best Western. I have reward points. We'll cash in my reward points, and we'll get ourselves a Best Western hotel. We get to the Best Western hotel. For whatever reason, this Best Western, they wanted like 5 times the amount of reward points for a night. And so the lady's like trying to tell me, it's like, well, but sir, this is Hollywood. And I was like, dude, there's a guy taking a shit on the sidewalk outside your hotel. Don't tell me this is super nice. Don't tell me that this is, oh, you get a better value because of how nice it is here. I literally walked in, there was a guy leaning up against the sidewalk, boss, taking a shit. So no, this is not nice. Like, this is the bare minimum. This is a fucking Best Western. Like, I'm not going to the Carlton. We ended up finding some random hotel that honestly sounded like I'm sorry to say it this way, a battered woman's shelter is the name of it. Sounded like it. And we stayed there. It was fairly nice. But it's kind of like one of those Airbnb things. But
Right.
I couldn't stand it, man. Like, we went downtown. We saw Justin Bieber. We went downtown.
Nice.
He was going into the Forum. So it was kind of.
I was going to say, was he the one shitting on the concrete?
Yeah,
No,
he
not at the
was.
moment. Yeah, but we walked up and down the Hollywood. We walked up the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and that was kind of nice, right? That little area. But even there, you're looking at people, and you're like, you got your kids, and you're like, okay, keep them real close.
Yep.
Don't let them get away from you, because these people are sketchy. And like, I feel like I walk around in Texas, and it's not that way. Like, I feel like, okay, if I walk down the street in Texas, and my kid wants to go look at something, like they run off for a second, it's like, okay, I can watch them from here and not feel like they're about to get abducted, sent down to Mexico for forced labor.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, it's a huge difference, and that's why I like Austin, and it seems like people here are trying to get it to look like California. I mean, because I'm sure you've heard about all the homeless problems here, and them rescinding that ban on camping out, and on one hand, you feel bad for the people who are homeless, but the thing is, you want actual solutions, not just to have them camping out in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
So I mean, Austin has its issues too, but yeah, it's nowhere near what's going on in LA and San Francisco. And
So,
I'm hoping that it never gets there.
So that
I'll be
brings
real
up-
honest on that. I was really surprised that the University of Texas didn't, and it's one of the few times you're going to hear me say those words in that order. I was really surprised that they didn't do something faster about that, because the homeless population was encroaching onto campus.
Yeah.
and crime rates on that campus were horrendous.
Yep.
Yeah. So I was really surprised that university didn't do something sooner, because typically they aren't one to allow that kind of activity to happen, because they have that image that they're trying to maintain, and they're trying to say that they are the best of the best of the best, and they have to maintain that image. Otherwise, they can't attract the best athletes, the best scholars, the best professors, the best staff. So I was really surprised that was allowed to happen for as long as it did, because of those standards that they uphold. I'm an Aggie, and I abhor the Longhorns at all costs, but I was really surprised they didn't do that, because they do have that, elitist attitude about them.
Yep.
That was allowed to happen for as long as it did. I was surprised they didn't tell the Austin City government to bow down to who their real owners were, aka them, and do what they wanted. So that was surprising to me that happened, and for as long as it did.
Yeah, I mean, and things are getting worse, and it's funny because a lot of the residents, even the ones on the left, they hate it. I mean, there's a whole movement to recall the city council and to recall Mayor Adler, and I'm not sure how much steam it's getting up to this point, but I mean, I've covered a few of their events. I mean, they get people out there, and they get people signing those petitions. So I mean, and even if it doesn't get to the point where they're able to recall, I mean, the time would be good for other candidates to get in there and get these people out, because they don't really have people's best interests at heart.
Yeah, Abbott went after Adler pretty hard there for a while.
Oh yeah,
because he should have. And Abbott actually, they did that little whatever camp that they did kind of north on is it on 183?
Camp Rat. Yeah, I've been there.
And you know what? It doesn't sound like the worst idea. Okay, we bring mental health officials in here. We have porta potties set up, and then we got counselors coming in that help with career counseling kind of stuff, trying to get people jobs. Okay, that seems like a reasonable solution to the problem. It's maybe not the greatest solution, because, and this is where I think I think where Republicans, where conservatives could make more inroads with the black community is when it comes to morality, because I think a lot of the black community is very moral people. We do have a large segment of black culture that is very large into their church communities and things like this, and they're very biblical. They believe in these things, and there's a lot of things that we would believe together. Like, I think the last time I saw a poll that, when they polled Black America about abortion, most Black Americans are against abortion, right? Especially late-term abortion. So they would be more willing to probably vote with the conservative side on that if we were to get it to where we could get them excused for doing so, right? I guess is the best way to say it at this point. So what we need to do is we need to find those similarities instead of trying to point out our differences. And I think that's a large part of why I wanted to have you on, because I see you calling out people when it's this Sesame Street conservatism. Because yes, there are differences between the black and white communities, bar none. Of course there are. And I'm not your friend Felicia, you know why she blocked me, because I don't believe in systemic racism. I believe that there are things within the government that have been set up, yes, to block black people from getting opportunities. I just don't think the government writ large is set up for that. I think it's the application of the government versus the way the government is actually set up, right? I don't think the Constitution was written to keep black people from being able to get ahead. But I think what Joe Biden did with the 94 crime bill, what Clinton did with the 93 housing bill, I think those things set up long-term and then did. It's our application of the system, not the system itself.
Well, and it really depends on who you talk to, because a lot of people would agree and actually define that as that's what systemic racism is. Maybe it's not the government itself that is just automatically systemically racist, but people have used the government systems to have racist outcomes. So when I say systemic racism, that's what I mean. I mean, like when they apply a law in a way that disproportionately affects black people, like the war on drugs, I mean, that's systemic racism. If black people don't commit more drug offenses than any other race, but they get popped for it more often, I mean, and I know there's other factors that go into it, but those factors don't account for all of the disparity. So I mean, people are able to enforce those laws and apply them in a way that has a more racist outcome. But no, I don't think that it's a case where people have codified into law racism. And I don't think that's what people actually mean when they say systemic racism. But again, a lot of times it kind of depends on who you talk to, because I've heard several different definitions of the term. I really talk about people using the government to do racist policies. Like we talk about illegal immigration. I think open borders policies are racist. Gun control laws have been used in racist ways. If you ever get Maj Toure on here, he'll tell you all about it. But I mean, there are ways that it is done. And here's the thing. Most of these policies are championed by Democrats. So there's no reason for us to defend it.
Yeah. So, okay. So we got about 8-9 minutes left, Jeff, and we do this with all of our guests. We want to open the floor to you, to a topic that we haven't brought up, but maybe you wanted to talk about, maybe we didn't get to. So what's a topic that you want to talk about? Or so maybe it's just that, hey, you want to have our opinion on something as two white guys that grew up in a very rural town. I mean, we're from Dime Box, just outside of Austin. You've probably driven through it, but didn't even realize you drove through it. If you drove to College Station, you drove through Dime Box from Austin.
Not necessarily. He could have gone through Hearn, Rockdale.
If that's the stupid way to go.
not if he's up near Pflugerville, Round Rock area.
I mean, that's still the stupid way to go.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
and if I'm from California and I don't know where I'm going.
I mean, then you have to.
I'm gonna be right back.
Then you have to go through Hearn and Cameron, and that's just stupid. Anyway, so if you ever driven like the Bastrop and then to College Station from there, you've driven through our hometown. You've driven right by our house. Our house is right off the road. I mean, you've literally been. You could have thrown a baseball from your car and hit our house. So, is there any question that you have for us that maybe it's like, okay, well, how do you guys view this? Why are you guys the way you are? Why do y'all have the big neck beards? Stuff like that.
So actually, yeah, I think I have a question. So, there are, in the white conservative world, there are a lot of misconceptions that they have about the black community. And I have my idea as to why that is. But like when it comes to like the tropes, like black people just want free stuff, or black people are on the left, or they vote Democrat because they're mentally enslaved, or a lot of the stereotypes that you're familiar with, Why do you think that so many white conservatives actually believe those things?
Well, so okay, you made the point earlier that black people who know white people personally will know that they're not racist, right? But at the same time, when we talk about these communities, a lot of these communities are still self-segregated, whether it's legal or not. The communities segregate
Right.
themselves, like even in our small towns, and then also a lot of rural areas. We grew up on a big ranch. Like we didn't go to town that often. We didn't go talk to people because we didn't need to, right? We weren't social. We saw people at church, and that was about the extent of it. So what they see of the black community is what they get through the media and what they get through the news, and then also what they get from the Obama phone lady. Remember that video? I got my Obama phone. And so those things get sent out, and then that becomes the characterization. And so I've said this to you, right? The 1% rule. You've heard me say that. So I believe that 1% of all population will make any population look bad, right? If I take the black community, if I take the gay community, if I take the white community, if I take the Muslim community, it doesn't matter. If I take any community and I take 1% of them, they will make you look bad because 1% of every community is shitholes. Right?
And they'll get 99% of the press.
They get 99% of the media.
Yeah.
They get 99% of the press. So for guys like Kyle and I who served in the military and were around black people coming from a rural area, we got to learn more of what it's like to live in a rural or live in those cities and to speak to those people, their experiences, find out that we're not all that different. Reality. Right? That we believe a lot of the same things. It's just how we were raised a little bit differently. And I think the black community has misconceptions about rural white America, and I think rural white America has misconceptions about black communities because we all see the worst of each other, right? The only thing that the black Americans see about rural white communities is the Confederate flags, and you can go read my post on our website. I don't fly, the Confederate flag's not allowed in my house, right? My family will not fly the Confederate flag. I don't believe in it. I don't think it's proper. I think it's indecent, but I also don't think that I can tell somebody else what to do with their shit. I don't have a problem with taking down Confederate statues whatsoever. I think we need to preserve history still. But okay, we can take these statues and put them somewhere else where we can put them in better context. We can put them in better light and give the full history of who that person was. So there's a lot of misconceptions on both sides. But for me, the reason that, growing up, we went to private school. There was no black people in our private school. There was no black people in our church. There was no black people in our local community. The black people we knew were very, we did have black people around us and we knew them and talked to them and they were very nice people, but we also didn't see them as being the at-large black community, right? It was always the trope of when you go to the inner city, roll the windows up, lock the doors.
You thought they were the exception to the rule, basically?
This is a different breed, right, when we get here.
Right.
This isn't black America being represented. This is just, this guy. This is this guy, and we know this guy, so he's a good guy, but he's the exception to the rule. Versus when you start to actually get to know people and talk to people who are inner city people, and Kyle and I both throughout the military and then both through collegiate careers and everything else, we got to know people more on a personal basis. And then you start saying, okay, these narratives that are being created and put out by the media, by different people, they don't really hold true when you start to actually converse with people. Right? Like, I can have a conversation with you. Your skin color is different than me, but that doesn't mean that we don't have similarities and things that we agree on. This whole conversation has been mostly things we, for the most part, agree on politically. Yep. So there's more similarities than and I hate when people say, well, we shouldn't see color. Because we should express our differences and we should celebrate our differences while also looking for those things that combine us and unify us. At my office, we do cultural potluck. So I have people from India, Venezuela, Argentina, Africa, France, England. I
like how you name off countries and then a continent.
Okay, you got me there. Fair. Okay, so we have guys from Cameroon, Nigeria, and the Ivory Coast. Happy?
Yeah.
So
a lot better.
Yeah. You weren't woken up there, man.
Yeah. So we do cultural potluck where people bring food from that's traditional to them. Not that's traditional to their country, to them. Because Kyle and I are from America, but I guarantee you we eat different shit than you eat. Right? Like, fried chicken to us means it's fried in lard. Not that it's fried in, Crisco or whatever. Right? Yeah. And so, but what you find is that people bring food and you're like, oh shit, yeah, my grandma makes something pretty similar to that. Right? Maybe not exactly the same. Maybe there's more spice or less spice, or it's a little bit different, but it's at least I recognize what the hell it is. Right?
And the Argentinians were a lot of Germans, so
we all eat a lot of chicken, we all eat a lot of pork, and we all eat a lot of beef.
Yeah.
So.
See, that is pretty. The answer that you gave is what I expected, and that's why I say the corporate media is the enemy of the people. Yep. Now, sometimes I get more specific with it, and I'll say the corporate media is the enemy of black people, or the corporate media is the enemy of white people. But when I'm doing that to make a specific point about an individual issue. But the corporate media is our enemy because they want us to have misconceptions about each other. And you're right. I blame the media for a lot of why white conservatives view us a certain way. And it isn't just right-wing media. Right-wing media is egregious on this, but it's the left too, because they only want to highlight a certain type of black person, and they only want to highlight a certain type of rural white person. They want us to see the racist rural white person and think that that's the community at large, even though it's not true. And I mean, and there was a study that showed that white people were less likely to have more minority friends than vice versa, which makes sense because whites are most of the population. It has nothing to do with racism. It's just geography and the demographics. So that combined with the fact that the media lies to white people about minorities on a daily basis, it's easy to see why those misconceptions can dominate.
Well, and you saw that with the Black Lives Matters movement. I like what Olivia has said. I like what a lot of other people have said, is that there's a difference between the BLM organization and the BLM movement, right? Because a lot of people have just taken that BLM mantra and personified it. They're not really about what the organization is about, because there's things to dislike about the organization. Fine. The organization has some Marxist leaders. It's got some people in that are trying to hijack what I think is the legitimate argument. And it was like people said, well, all lives matter. Well, if you say all lives matter, then why can't you say Black Lives Matter? Because Black lives are part of all lives. And yes, we can say all lives matter, but I can also say in that same sentence that Black lives do in fact matter. And that in doing so, again, I don't think the left means to take these and set them as traps, but I think they do a good job of, once it's there, of taking it and making it a trap by taking what the people on the right who come out and say all lives matter, whatever, and then saying that, look, they're racist. You shouldn't vote for them. They're racist. They don't care about you. We care about you. Well, we do care about you.
They're very smart in the way they present that.
They're very manipulative. I wouldn't say smart. Manipulative is a better word. And you
gotta be smart to manipulate, though.
So the point is
unless you've got like really nice
unless
assets.
unless the people you're trying to manipulate are falling right into your hands for you.
Well, either they're very dumb or they're a man falling for a woman's assets.
Right. So the right all too often takes the bait, whether we should or we shouldn't. Like, okay, I don't think that there's a black national anthem, but at the same time, if you want to play that song before every NFL game, it's not going to hurt my feelings whatsoever. It doesn't take anything away from the national anthem being played. And maybe it's something where we can find some unity between the two of us, where we can all come together. You know what? I'm going to stand for your song if you'll stand for mine.
Right.
You know? And my song is not because I'm a white guy. My song is because I'm a veteran who fought for the country and served this country, and that song has a special place to me as a veteran and as a grandchild of a veteran, and as, you know, a person whose family, since our family has gotten here in the late 1800s, early 1900s, whose family has a history of serving in the military. But you know, the funny thing that white people don't want to admit is if we look at military service records, African Americans are one of the highest populations of military service members. They serve
17%.
Yeah, they serve well above the 13.4% of the, you know, so Black America serves in the military. Puerto Ricans are the highest per capita military service members. Puerto Rico, Guam, Samoa, those guys serve in the military like crazy. Because, well, one, there's not a lot of job opportunities where they're from. So military service is one of the things that can help them get job opportunities and get to be outside of their local areas. But still, they're serving. Whether you justify the reasons or not, it's really not important. The point is that they're serving in the military. They're risking their lives for this country, for everybody else. And people in Samoa, Guam, they're way out there. They don't really have all that much reason to say. They can say fuck the rest of the United States because we're out here on our own. But yet,
except that they probably want our protection when it comes to
we're
China
gonna give it to
and
them
other
anyway
countries.
because we want the air base to be able to hit China.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's true.
so it's mutually beneficial.
If that was the case, we'd build a fucking VA clinic in Guam. They have to fly to Hawaii to go to a VA appointment.
Well, that's the VA for you. Government-run healthcare.
I'm saying that if we were pandering to them, we would put a fucking VA clinic on their island because half of the fucking island is eligible for VA benefits. But yet they have to, if they want to go to a VA appointment, they have to fly to fucking Hawaii to get a VA appointment. Right? How does that make a lick of fucking sense?
Now that Trump's allowed you to see a private, that's going to help a lot.
Well, and let's be fair. Obama signed the first law. Now, he didn't support it, but he did sign it because he knew it would be a political fucking disaster to veto it. Right? The first law that gave VA choice was under Obama. He did sign it. No Democrat voted for it in the House, mind you. Right? No Democrat voted for it in the House. They did vote. See, it was funny because they voted for it in the Senate. That almost all Democrats voted for it in the Senate. Actually, every Democrat voted for it in the Senate. But it was going to pass regardless. They couldn't tank it, and it looked better. I'm going to say that they did it because they knew they couldn't tank it. They knew they couldn't get it to fail, and it looked better to be supportive of veterans than not, whereas every Democrat in the House voted against it. Pelosi, Schiff, Nadler, every one of them who wants you to think that we hate veterans, they all voted against VA choice. We've seen AOC come out and say, there's nothing wrong with the VA. The VA is perfect. And like you said, Jeff, it's working exactly as they intend it to work.
Yep.
All right, guys, we're going to cut it here. Thank you so much, Jeff, for joining us. It was a great conversation. We're happy to have you. We make this offer to everybody, but we'll make it to you as well. If you ever have a topic you want to come on and talk to us about, Monday nights we do our normal show, Kyle and I, where we just talk about whatever the hell we want to talk about, what two fat bearded white guys want to talk about. And, we just go through it. But if there's ever a topic that you feel that, would add substance to that show and you want to come on and talk about it for a little while, by all means, give us an email, shoot me a DM on Twitter, and we'll bring you in and let you talk for a little while about whatever that topic is and give you our opinion on it as well. But thank you so much for joining us. Where can our audience find you?
Yeah, so you can read my stuff on redstate.com, on libertynation.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at JeffOnTheRight.
Okay. Kyle, how about you for tonight?
Well, it's mid-afternoon, but you can find me on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram at Kyle Schumann08. And normally it's underneath me, but because we got the guests, we don't. But it's in the description below. Yep. I'm on all those platforms. And then we've got our website, him-hall.com, where we sell our beautiful merchandise, which is, a
sticker so far.
Sticker or decal, whatever you want to call it. And those are available for $5.50 on the website, unless you DM me or Ross directly, in which case we'll sell it to you for $5. It's $5.50 because we have to pay, royalty fees to PayPal. So to not be out of pocket, we up the price a little bit.
Yeah.
But other than that, that's everything on my end.
So I want to thank Jeff again for coming on. It's been a great conversation. Thank you, sir, for reaching out to us and making us work. I want to thank everybody who's watched the show to this point. If you've been with us, we've got 8 viewers right now. Thank you so much for watching. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe to the channel. It does help us out. Put a like, put a big old thumbs up mark on this video so that Jeff knows you like him. Otherwise, he might get in his feelings tonight, as he's drinking his tequila, enjoying his 4th of July. With that being said, guys, happy 4th of July. We want to wish everybody, every one of you, a safe and happy and beautiful 4th of July. Please enjoy it. Please have a good time. Please be safe. Don't set yourself on fire, Kyle.
Don't blow off any fingers, Ross.
Kyle. And so with that, guys, I do have more injuries than Kyle. I'll give him that. With that being said, I tried to shoot an M180 out of a slingshot one time, but by the time I got it racked back, it blew up in my hand. So with that being said, guys, please do subscribe to the channel. Give us a like. Whatever you want to do, we're happy to. Put some messages down, some comments down below so we know what we're doing good and what we're not doing. A thin 100% thank you to Jeff. Everybody, have a beautiful night. God bless you all.
Gigaman, God bless.
See you guys later.
See ya.
I just keep calling on the help of my peers. But their success makes me distressed. Things will be better when I disappear, bouncing from city to state. Nothing feels great, I'm a committed disgrace. If I could get up, hold my chin up, confidence is just a bluff for the weak. Might take a peek in my self-pity to realize it's selfishness for the meek. Just take these pills, it makes it better, but withdrawals will make you seize up and tweak. You gotta buy it every month, we change the brand, it's more expensive this